This is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business, and this is our annual reorganization meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we do have all members present, so we definitely have a quorum. May we have the mission statement, Mr. Hendricks?
Lebanon Community School Corporation challenges everyone every day to reach a new best.
Great. And as part of our reorganization meeting, we are going to elect some new officers. So I will be nominating our vice president, Mr. Clauser, to become president. Can we do all these in?
I do
we
them
have to vote?
individually, I
Okay.
guess. Yeah.
So,
See if there's any other nominations.
yes, anyone else want to make a nomination for president besides Mr. Clauser? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, congratulations, Mr. President. You are now our new president. Do we have any nominations from the floor, from the dais, whatever this is called up here, for vice president?
I will nominate Trey Hendricks, Vice President.
All right, do we have any other nominations? All right. All in favor for Trey Hendricks becoming vice president, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right. And do we have a nomination for secretary?
Yeah, I will make a nomination for Brett Havlin to serve as secretary.
Great. Any other nominations? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Congratulations, gentlemen. We look forward to you running the next meeting.
I'll try and do it justice.
So now we're going to move into our consent agenda, and these are routine organization matters. And Dr. Milliman, would you like to talk
Sure.
about
I'll
these?
roll through these for us quickly, just as a reminder for many of the board members, as well as the public, that this is a required meeting by Indiana statute, that school boards have a reorganization meeting, take care of some of these routine matters, make these committee appointments, set the calendar, et cetera. And to that end, the first item here is to establish a regular meeting date and time. The meetings reflected in your notes are consistent with our longstanding practice of the third Tuesday. That changes a bit sometimes with our vacation schedules, winter break, et cetera. So those would fluctuate. A couple executive sessions that we know are typical around teacher contract negotiation time, as well as my annual review is on there as well for an executive session. For the public's knowledge, we do call those as needed, so that's not reflected on this adopted calendar. There is an item on here which is would be a public 1028 hearing on February 10th. And we can discuss what time of day that would be, but if the board's pleasure is to move forward with something that we're going to be talking about at the regular meeting this evening, we will determine the time for that. So that would be your meeting schedule. Item A, board salary and benefits. The state legislature did change the ability for school boards to receive what the amount to receive as a stipend. And that ability gives school boards the ability to be reimbursed at no more than 10% of the base salary of the teacher's salary according to the teacher's contract. For us, that would be $5,190. I think is what that would be. We've had conversations before here that the board was not comfortable with that number, and just because you can doesn't mean you want to. So the board agenda this evening reflects no change, even though you have the ability to pay yourself more on a stipend. This is the same as you would have received before, which is a $2,000 annual stipend, and then there's some meeting per diems as well as part of that. So just for the public's knowledge, because that has sometimes been talked about what is available to you to done, that this would anticipate the board foregoing that option. The board treasurer would remain Melissa Moore as longstanding board treasurer for the work. Extracurricular fund treasurer would be Nikki Asbury. Again, no change. Assistant superintendent for business and operations, Mr. Dennis, would be our appointed corporation extracurricular fund supervisor. You're approving the bonds this evening as we bond folks in the business office to make sure that those folks are protected and the board's protected for the school treasurer, extracurricular fund treasurer, and the accounts payable personnel. The consent agenda would authorize our assistant superintendent for business and operations to prepay all invoices reflecting discount and any payment which is mandated by statute or any other valid directive. That way we can get the best efficient deal and, of course, follow statutes when we need to. And then, of course, we would bring it to the board for your official approval at the very next meeting in those instances. Appointing school corporation general counsel, the consent agenda recommends us remaining with Parr, Ritchie, Franzen, Patterson, Cruz. Mr. Franzen has now just begun estimating that that's been the case for approximately 40 years for the board. So I think you can't keep track of exactly what that number is, but this consent agenda would have them remain as board counsel. Attendance officer for the corporation would remain under the duties of our director of operations, Mr. Martin. That's to submit official paperwork and reports that are required to the state of Indiana. This would also allow us to use the check signer and rubber stamp signatures when appropriate on checks. And the credit card limits for all the administrators are in your background notes as well, so we can pay our bills and get our credit card points and use those. They're not really points when you're talking about a corporation, but you get the idea. Our negotiated deals with that company. And then, of course, the board committees this evening, which would be, appears Mr. Parks, Mr. Havlin for bid openings, and alternates for myself or Mr. Dennis in those instances. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Klauser, Mr. Hendricks. Curriculum, Mr. Havlin and Mr. Hendricks. Technology committee, Mrs. Hutchison and Mr. Parks. Strategic planning, Mr. Klauser and Mr. Havlin. Finance committee, Mr. Havlin and Mr. Parks. Bylaws and policies, Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Hendricks. Did I hear a little change potentially on ag right before the meeting? I thought I heard some rumblings. Does that change?
Yes.
Okay.
It would.
Yeah, I believe Mr. Havlin, that's a board
Okay.
or a committee that I normally sat on. but
Very
Mr.
good.
Havlin wanted to take
We'll
that.
just say that out loud, so when Mrs. Beltran plays this back, she'll have the minutes reflect that properly. Boone County Redevelopment Commission, Mrs. Hutchison. City of Lebanon, RDC, Mr. Parks, and Whitestown RDC, perhaps Mr. Havlin. We'll put that on there as well. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I'll just go ahead and take Q as well, Mrs. Hutchins, if you don't mind. This also would include the election of officers to the Board of Finance. You'll be holding a Board of Finance meeting as soon as we finish with this reorganization meeting. Mr. Dennis will be presenting that, and the statute does require that school boards appoint a Board of Finance committee as well, officers, and it has been customary for your slate of officers you just elected to serve in that as well. So that's what the minutes would reflect. And minute preparation and board meeting attendance. Again, you'll see the per diem there. And each board member, school board member in the state does file a conflict of interest form with the state of Indiana and also with in Boone County. So those can all be seen as public record as well, should there be any questions about that. So those will be taken care of this evening as well. And I think that's all of those items. So thank you for letting me explain that to our audience this evening.
Sure. Does anyone have any questions or comments about A through Q? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda items A through Q as explained and presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Now I'm handing that over to you.
Great. All right, well, I'll go ahead and call our regular meeting to order at this time. This meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. The meeting site is fully accessible, and any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation central office. Since we've already done the pledge and reading of the mission statement, I think we'll go ahead and determine a quorum. Looks like all members are present. At this time, I'll go ahead and open the Board of Finance hearing and turn that over to Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Martin, I know you've very diligently extended your screen to show that. I would like. I was going to ask permission to take over Community Room 3 if I could. Okay. Good. Play from the start. Perfect. So as Dr. Milliman alluded to in the previous meeting, every January, the superintendent or one of his delegates is to make a presentation as to the fiscal stability of the school corporation to the Board of Finance, which, as Dr. Milliman just explained, is this board as well. Included the code side up there, relatively new requirement. Well, actually, perhaps a relatively old requirement in the realm of school laws as the frequency with which they change. But 2019 is when this process began. We are to use fiscal indicators as determined by DUAB, D-U-A-B, the Distressed Unit Appeals Board, has defined 5 or 6 off the top of my head, specific indicators that they have decided that are a good indication of a school's fiscal stability. What is ironic about this, these indicators are prepared for us. So as I advance this PowerPoint, these are screen grabs off of DUAB's website. And what's interesting is with the timing of the requirement of this presentation, clearly 2025 data has not been able to be presented. And so prior to getting into these fiscal indicators, I always remind the board that these fiscal indicators are through December 31st of 2024. So they're a year old. At the end of this, I've added one additional item to this year's meeting that I have not in the past. And that is, due to what I feel is what a difference a year can make. And so in presenting this data through December 31st of 2024, the last 365 days, I think represents some changes in the landscape for the finances of Lebanon Community School Corporation that I feel I'd be remiss if I did not share at this meeting as well. So we'll go ahead and jump in. The first indicator is your attendance, or what we call average daily membership. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is a chart going back to school year 2015, 2016, and as they've added this new year, I find it worthy to note that we, with last year's attendance data, have finally rebounded to where we were back a decade ago. So enrollment did drop for some time, and then really starting in the 2020s, we began to see enrollment increase. And I think you also get a good indication of the traditional drop that we see during spring. So as a reminder, we take 2 ADM counts. October 1st, what we call the fall count, and February 1st, that's coming up this year, is what we call the spring count. Lebanon Community School Corporation generally sees a drop in the spring, most notably due to mid-year graduates of our seniors that fulfilled their graduation requirements mid-year. There was a time when school finance, school funding only took place once per year, and there was a law put in place to add the February 1st date. I guess lawmakers felt that it was not indicative to continue funding at the level that was presented in the fall if students were leaving in December. And so the February 1st count date was enacted to true up your monthly disbursements to recognize what your enrollment was in the spring at that point. Next is demographics, which DUAB has defined as our students who qualify for free reduced lunch, as well as students receiving special education services, as well as English language learners. And again, just a year ago, doing this meeting with the data that was available till then, especially on the English language learners column, it really looked pretty predictable in terms of where LCSC was with our English language learners. But what you can notice here is a general increase in the trend of all three of these unique populations. And as we keep logging years, I imagine that trend at the moment at least to continue. But really, this is a good indication on the ELL side, which represents a doubling in 1 year of the ELL population of the school corporation. Next comes our fund balances. A lot of different colors here. This slide gets a little bit easier on the eyes with the next slide, but I do this in two different slides really to represent the individual fund balances themselves. Some different colors pre-2019. I always remind this board that since 2019, that's the inception of the education fund and the operations fund, much like the remaining units of local government. The general fund is what was present in education until 2019, but that was when the education fund was enacted. You can see a large growth appear in 2024, and again, that's what I wish to share with the board at the end of this presentation. When I combine all these together, we see that general trend. And so obviously we receive a lot of our funding from students per pupil, and we also have seen our enrollment increase quite a bit over the last 5 years. And when you grow 90 kids in a year, and that's, let's say, 3 elementary classrooms. Those would be big classrooms, of course. So in fairness, maybe 4 classrooms. Just because a school district adds 90 students doesn't necessarily mean that you need to add 4 teachers. They can be spread across multiple buildings, multiple grade levels, and the school corporation can absorb that. And so I plan to revisit kind of my point in saying that as I get to the end of this presentation, but certainly an increase in the fund balances in recent years. Here's our annual deficit surplus. So green would be the revenue, blue would be expenditure. So in a year where green is higher than blue, you'll see a yellow bar, which is either the deficit or the surplus. If it's above the x-axis, it would be a surplus. If it's below, it would be a deficit. So again, with the green bars being above the blue bars, we see a surplus in recent years and in 24 as well. Here is our fund balances as a percentage of expenditures. So basically what this means is if all revenue stopped, how long could you make it? How many years could you make it? And so when you see that most recent green bar there representing 50% balance as a percent of expenditures, that means 6 months. So halfway through the year is what that means, is the easiest way. We do have a board policy in place that was recognized as best practice. Quite honestly, a safe number for a school corporation of this size is roughly 30%. So we are above that to some extent. Certainly some reasons where above 30 is beneficial for us. We can certainly talk about some of those. But when you think about 30 or 40 or 50% or 10%, different school corporations, again, it's a function of your overall fund balances. So what I always tend to share is from the perspective of capital improvements. So think of a larger high school nearby. Zionsville would be a perfect example. And you think about the cost to replace the roof at this building at Lebanon High School versus Zionsville High School. That percentage of our budget is a much larger percentage than that same amount at Zionsville High School. So it's tough to say a specific percentage of cash on hand is prudent for all school corporations across the state, because 10% of somebody's budget could represent many millions of dollars, whereas 10% of a small school corporation, I know Angola, some near and dear, is a much smaller amount. And so sometimes percentages are a little bit misleading. This is where our revenue comes from, whether it be local tax revenue, state revenue, from the education fund. So blue is the education fund. I guess kind of salmon, pink would be local tax revenue. They do break that out. The teal is specifically operating revenue. So the salmon and the teal would represent local tax revenue at that point. This chart looks incomplete, and that's because this is the final fiscal indicator for schools only that have, for only schools that have an operating referendum. And so last, 2024 was the second year we had operating referendum dollars. So the blue bar is simply the balance of that fund, or the revenue, I should say, in that fund, and then the orange line is what percentage of the overall revenue that you receive is just that fund, is just the operating referendum. And so I know this board will recall a decision that we made, this year to pull back on the operating referendum, and for many of those reasons that we saw in the previous slides. I believe I shared at the last meeting our overall levy. Again, budget order just came out last week. Our overall levy is $200,000 less this year than it was last year. And there was an article recently that we were in the Lebanon Reporter, and I made it clear in that article, and I want to make it clear at this meeting, that was a decision from this board, whereas many folks will think that that's Senate Enrolled Act 1 that represents a reduction in revenue. That was a willful decision of this governing body and administration, again, due to a lot of the fiscal health in the previous slides that I think many people would say is very healthy. So that's I wanted to mention that. Last thing I do want to share is that these are just our cash and cash equivalent, our bank accounts, and what we have. Sharing interest earned, so $3,000 shy of $1 million of interest earned. It's a much lower number than last year, as the FDIC, as interest rates continue to be lowered at the federal level, that affects the interest that we collect. I'll share openly that interest is not something that I budget. When I take that approach into making the budget, interest can go down in any given year. I suppose it could go up as well. So whether interest is high or interest is low, interest is just not something that's budgeted for. It's nice. It adds to cash balance, but it is certainly important to share. We are earning around $1 million of interest. Something that is important to share, the fourth and fifth line on this, which are money market accounts that we have with State Bank. A year ago, that percentage was 4.14. So how banking works for us is the third line down, you see our sweep account. Every night we have a peg at $1.5 million, and if our operating account is above $1.5 million, that money is swept out of there, because again, in that operating account you earn zero interest. That's because of an analysis statement. We have bank fees like wire fees, just to have banking services, things like that. It's a common thing. Every business has it. You don't earn interest on your operating dollars, because in lieu of that interest that they would pay you, they use to pay your banking fees. That number for us to pay our banking fees is $1.5 million. So every evening, whether it's under 1.5 or above 1.5, that money is either swept in or swept out. And where that's swept to, of course, is the third line entitled sweep. That is pegged at 3.75. That is the agreement that LCSC has with State Bank, and that's the money that they pay in that account. And again, certainly important for you all to know that when I recognize that our money markets are earning less than our sweep, that there was a phone call made and said, listen, we're either going to move all this money into the sweep, or let's talk about what our money market is earning. Had that conversation, and certainly State Bank and the wonderful partners they are acquiesced to physically manipulate the rate of our money markets to 3.75 to match our sweep, because that is a significant amount of interest. You're talking about more than 20 basis points there that are significant. So important to do that. Again, it was wonderful when the money markets were earning over the sweep. Unfortunately, though, with the rate cuts and more on the horizon in 2026, that will change. So overall, interest earning well in our bank accounts, and a solid amount. I also want to make sure in this, we also see, let's not forget that when we talk about the revenue this year, $750,000 came from selling our transportation facility. Those aren't that's not taxation. That's selling of an asset. So again, as I mentioned, one final item for this, and Mr. Martin, I'm going to let go of this so you can go back to yours. So board, if you will go into the second item for this agenda item in this meeting, you will locate our 10-year cash flow forecast, not projections, but forecast. I'm taking a bit of a page out of Dr. McKibben's book because a forecast is utilizing the best data that you have available and saying if this were to continue, this is where we will be. And so if you would navigate to that 10-year cash flow, I want to share with you the cash flow assumptions that I have that make that forecast. And really where you want to let your eyes go are the yellow row and the blue row. The yellow row represents the net change in fund balance in our budgeted funds, less debt service. I ignore debt service here because there's one thing debt service can do, and that's pay debt service. So really our operational accounts, education, operations, operating referendum, and rainy day fund. The yellow bar represents the change in overall fund balance for that specific calendar year. Black number means fund balance went up. Red number means fund balance goes down. Then go to the blue row. That's cash on hand in those funds, total fund balance. I recognize that the fiscal indicators presentation that I just shared indicated quite a significant growth in fund balances in recent years. And I've shared many times with this board that we're trying to find what I've been referring to as a glide path, knowing that we had work to do in our teaching contract with salaries of our classified staff, right-sizing what services we participate in and contract with outside of these walls. A lot of things, really. And we knew that we had the resources to make some decisions to, again, address our teaching contract, compensation of our teachers, and things of that nature. And it looked like that line is increasing in terms of fund balance, almost uncontrolled. That's why I wanted to show this. And so when you look at 2024, which is the last data that DUAB had, and the data that I shared with you now let your eyes go to the yellow row of 2025. Keep in mind, 750,000 of that 3.2 million is the sale of our transportation facility. So recognizing where our revenue was, these are the decisions we've made in the budget to essentially levy what we need. But now let your eyes go to 2026. And now we're getting to what a lot of folks refer to as a net zero budget, zero-based budgeting, spending what you're bringing in. In other words, cash reserves are prudent, stable, and healthy. We are now at a point where we can spend what comes in rather than having some in reserves. And that's why I like to share that blue bar as well. But now you see the trend that's forecasted. Now, keep in mind, every month, when I update this for your board report every month, these numbers change tremendously as you're able to put actuals in. But forecasts are important. I'm paying a lot of attention to 2027. When we're a year away, this is way more accurate than it is for 2034. But nonetheless, it's important that I know where we're headed. And what this tells me, and what is majorly important, is if you allow yourself to go to 2031, yellow row, that represents the first year without the operating referendum. To provide the services that this school corporation is providing, some sort of operating referendum or additional revenue is prudent. And we know that from what this is showing. Now, I've mentioned that this is a forecast. What assumptions are in this forecast? There's 7. and here's what they are. One, I have plugged in all revenue-dependent data for 2026. In other words, I know what our operations fund levy is for 2026. That's in here. I know what our operating referendum levy is. That's in here. Now, what else could change? I don't know how many students we're going to have in the fall. I have a good idea how many we're going to lose, though, on February 1st. And right now, we're at 27. That's a significant drop over what we tend to see. 10 to 20 is about where we normally are. That's plugged in here. That drop of 27 is in here. So if we lose 20, if some students enroll between now and February 1st, this gets better. If some students withdraw between now and February, this gets worse. Okay? But all revenue dependent data is entered through calendar year 26. 2, for the life of this forecast, for the decade of this forecast, I am assuming that all revenue increases only by 1%. Now, you could say, Mr. Dennis, that's pretty bleak. Keep in mind our real increase in the education fund for next contract year, next school year, 1.6%. Okay? The exception here is current law allows us to raise the operations fund levy by 4% every year. So the operations levy is increasing by that 4% every year. The rest of the revenue, only a 1% increase year over year. 3, this forecast assumes that we will give exactly a 3% raise to certified staff and a 3% raise to classified staff every year. That's a decision we have control over. I really don't have control over revenue, but in terms of our bottom line and expenses, we could give more than 3% or we could give less than 3% to one or both groups. 4, we will add 2 new teachers every year. We can decide not to do that, or we can decide to add 5. That moves this forecast. But what you're seeing in front of you assumes 2 new teachers every year. 5, each year, LCSC will grow by 10 less than Dr. McKibben said we will. I'm just being safe there. He missed by 8 this year. Okay? Other years we've grown by more than what he says. This year we grew by 8 less. So I went into his latest demographic study and I input a growth by 10 less than what he said we will. I also assume that we'll lose 10 students every February. 6, utility costs will increase by 7% annually. You may say, Mr. Dennis, that may not be aggressive enough. Our energy savings project will come online this year. So average statewide about 10%. We've seen 15% at times. I'm hoping that the energy savings project will come in and slash that in half. So I've chosen 7%. I could be wrong. I could be too aggressive, and I'm just not sure. But I have increased that expenditure by 7% annually. All other expenditures, supplies, diesel fuel, tires, curricular supplies, things like that, will get more expensive by 5% every year. Those are the 7 assumptions that are baked into this projection. And so what I've shared with executive administration today is we've reached our cruising altitude. Any decision we make to spend more money, we will decrease in altitude, cash balance. Whereas in the past few years, Mr. Dennis has made a habit of saying everybody's famous and most favorite words from the money guy, yes. The answer has been yes, often, because we've had those resources available, and I believe in what I was being asked for. Now we are at that stable point. Can certainly have conversations about if a cash balance of 50% is too much and we want to strategically lower this. Certainly something that we can have a conversation about, but just sharing where we are. Any questions for me?
Do we have any data on I think you said that your numbers assume and forecast for a 10 student withdrawal from fall to spring. Do we know what the data is showing us this year in terms of why that is, over almost 3 times that?
You can go for that.
The trend, not just in LCSC, but across the state, has been a trend to migrate toward online opportunities. We talked about it briefly at one of the previous board meetings. Mr. Meyer, Mr. Dunshee, Dr. Ottinger, and I are discussing options that we may begin here at LCSC. Some of our colleagues in the Indianapolis region do that. Our largest transfer out of this district, next to our neighbors in public schools, is online, either online charter schools or other public schools that are running a virtual program. I will share with the board, the DOE just published in the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks now, the transfer report. We get 2 transfer reports a year, one in the fall, one in the spring, coinciding with those ADM days. And our transfers have slowly increased. Those are out, and that's consistent with some of our neighbors as well. And again, that number is typical. When you see on that transfer report that folks are students are transferring to Clarksville, which is down near the Ohio River, and they live in our school district, they're not physically going to Clarksville. They're logging on. And that is a public school that runs a virtual program. Union County, over by the Ohio line, we have many students that are enrolled in their program. We have some in Crawfordsville, same thing. So we do have some decisions to make, both administratively and as a board, as to where we stand on that, because there's a staffing cost. No matter what you do, there's a cost to providing that. And so I think we have to think about what makes sense for us. But that's our largest transfer right now. Is second largest transfer is to online programs.
And what about age range for that? Is that a certain percentage? Is that mainly juniors, seniors we're seeing that out of?
You see that 6 through 12. When you're getting into that online environment, you're starting to see it more like middle school through high school. We see it mid-year, most often 9 through 12.
Mr. Dennis, you said our budget is 50%. Last 6 months of cash flow stock, correct? And you said that other schools typically have that 30%. Is there what's the risk versus benefit on something about lowering that?
So the immediate risk, and this is an interesting, we currently receive our semi-annual property tax settlements very late in June and December. And those are absolutely 100% necessary to have on time, because June 30th and December 31st, we absolutely must make our debt payments. So having many millions of dollars in the bank, in the event that I don't get that check in my hand, and there have been years where I picked that check up on December 30th. I think that's important. And that's not a great answer for the question you asked, but that's an important reason to have that cash on hand. Another big reason is the trend in property and casualty insurance. We were lucky enough to actually get a deductible on every building but this building this year. The trend is moving away from that. For wind and hail claims to be 1% of the insurable value of the building. So that is what we're operating under with LCSC right now. They estimated LCSC's insurable value to be right at $60 million this year. So if we were to have a windstorm come through and tear off just a portion of the roof, it's the entire insurable value of this building that's our deductible at that point. So we have a $600,000 deductible on this building should we have a wind or hail claim. Very easy for a roof tear off to exceed that amount, or at least be right at that amount. Long story short, we could easily pay if we get the wrong type of storm, straight line winds, God forbid tornado, come through. So that cash balance gets utilized awfully quickly in those regards. The other thing about cash balance is it's kind of like the Titanic. It builds momentum that takes time to redirect, but it can start growing on you quickly. Devising a plan to start spending it, you may say, let's take a more aggressive shot at salaries. That becomes a year-over-year expense that begins to tumble quickly. So I think with thoughtful work, it can be done. But again, as I go back and revisit that, I mean, that's cash on hand of $23 million. Chances are, if Lebanon High School experiences straight line wind damage, Central Elementary Transportation and Lebanon Middle School could experience the same damage as well. So that's why I brought up, what is 50% to LCSC versus MSD Pike, Zionsville, Westfield. I mean, fairly close geographic neighbors that have a much larger overall fund balance, and that percentage is there. So
I would mention as well the legislative trend, and reminding the board that when you hear and see the term funding going to K-12 education, that statement does not say K-12 public education. And so the percentage difference of increase in funding has not tilted toward public schools. And we don't see any change in that trend anytime soon as well. So we have to protect our assets, which is our people. We know that it's 90% people. So our assets are people, the students and the staff. And you see the fiscal cliff without the referendum and the programs that provides. It's still looming out there. So to be able to protect that and as well is important to insert here in this conversation, I think.
Does this account too for some of the additional legislation? Sorry, that just kind of jogged my memory. Some of that, how the legislation's changed in terms of sharing referendum dollars and things like that. Is this accounting for some of that too?
So no revenue sharing from the referendum standpoint, but I did use, Policy Analytics updated our property tax report once our AV came in to reflect Senate Enrolled Act 1. Our current reduction in revenue is incorporated into this projection, into the operations fund, and it is a large driver of what we're seeing as far as eating into cash $200,000-$400,000 in the next 5 years. That's another answer to Mr. Haviland's question is, for many years, I think school finance officials were accused of being doomsday preppers, if you will, but doom never came. Doom came last June. And so that cash on hand for us in this case, which is healthy, could prove to be useful to help us bridge and really find a game plan when and if SEA 1 is allowed to experience its full
Potential.
Because what I can't model is things like business personal property. We don't know how much BPP is in our school corporation. We also don't know which CFOs of these companies are going to choose to purchase all new property because of the massive tax advantages of shunting all of their legacy BPP that is stuck at 30% and can be depreciated no lower. That's the unknown. So when I say I've got SEA 1 baked in here, it's what I know about SEA 1. There are still some unknown. There are still some things hiding behind doors.
The 50% is year end too, correct? You're striking that at year end, and then if you think, I think you think about the cycle of when we get the installment to a storm that comes in at the when we have spent down more before we've gotten our second settlement, and if that delayed even more so.
This will drop by $5 million.
Is a cumulative of all the different funds.
Yes.
Not all colors of money are the same. We can't spend it all on the same equal things too. So that's kind of looks like, you can't just, it's not just straight up cash. You can't just use it for end use across the board.
But a good point. Our low water point will be $5 million under this by the time we get to June.
And
More than that, actually. I'm sorry. I mean,
on the
5, 6, 7.
Yeah. on your financial projections of the education fund,
Mhm.
you're also assuming the same amount, no change in legislation towards that we all know is not guaranteed either, right? So you are basing your assumptions of the education fund per pupil. Correct.
That one is not governed by an SCA one, or we know that the operating fund is capped at the 4%. We don't know what the per student tuition will be, or what tweaks will happen within that for complexity index funding or whatever it might be. So that's why I think the conservative view of that being 1% is prudent here, because it could be less than that, it could be a little bit more than that. But by the time it's a little bit more than that, we also have the goal of retaining staff. And when you retain staff, you pay them more. Insurance costs, health insurance costs have not been decreasing, at least in any industry I've seen. So, yeah, 1% may be too generous.
I think this is a perfect example now that a lot of these numbers in the yellow bar are now red, to add a third document each month to our financial update and just see how these change as actuals get input. Again, this is the first time really those numbers have not been black. And so nothing to be alarmed about. I mean, this is exactly what we were trying to work our way towards, spending what we get. Now that we're there, I think there's nothing wrong at all. And in fact, I plan to share a third document now with our financial update each month, and we can keep an eye on these.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Great.
Any other questions? All right, at this point, I'll go ahead and close the Board of Finance hearing and open our regular meeting. So we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Looking to approve the minutes from December 16th, 2025 of our regular meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Then moving on to superintendent's announcements and celebrations after such a wonderful.
Let's do some celebrations.
Yeah, since Zach built this up, let's.
That's right. You may have
keep it
seen
going.
Mrs. Buis's post on social media that we were celebrating Lebanon High School's graduation rate, 97%, above our the state number, and just put in there that that this is a credit to not just our high school staff, of course, but the preparation of our students. And of course, when you're talking about a growing school district and a changing school district with, changing student body every year, it's, again, a credit to everyone that is involved with that. So just wanted to make sure that we celebrated that with the high school. One that didn't make it in, it was after it went to the board's background notes this evening. I was just made aware this afternoon that Mr. Meyer was notified by the college board that Lebanon High School has earned an AP, that's Advanced Placement, School Honor Roll recognition of bronze of the bronze level for their AP achievement enrollment over the past year. And it what the college board measures is what they call college culture, which is that students are increasingly engaging in AP coursework, demonstrating growing participation in college-level learning opportunities. What they call a college credit criteria. Nearly 1/3 of the class of 2026 earned college credit by achieving a qualifying AP exam score. And we actually reached the silver level on what the college board calls college optimization, which means that they've reflected strong support for students taking multiple AP classes during their high school career. So we had 2 bronze and a silver. We're very close to having 2 silvers and a bronze, which would have got us that silver medal. But I've shared with the board in some of your background notes before that we've been growing the number of advanced placement courses, as well as enrollment, as well as tests taken. So just a testament to our rigorous college prep curriculum. So I wanted to spend a moment and congratulate, again, testament to our elementary, middle school, and high school teachers and staff and community as well in preparing students for those opportunities. And lastly, in my celebrations this evening, I want to congratulate Claire Granlund, who is your 2026 girls state runner-up in wrestling. She's the first female wrestler at Lebanon High School to reach 100 wins. And that just happened this week. I felt like I didn't want to put her on the spot and bring her to the board meeting with such short notice to celebrate her, but I'm going to invite her to the next meeting so you can all congratulate her in person. But what a tremendous honor and what a great testament to that program. And we'll be talking about girls wrestling a little bit later here in the athletic presentation. That's it for my celebrations and announcements.
All right, perfect. Yeah, congratulations to Claire. Saw a lot of good things on social media from.
One of the most commented posts we've had, which tells you that people pay attention.
Yeah, that was good to see. All right, so I think now we'll move on to item 7, informational items. We'll start with the athletic facilities master planning update.
Sorry, I had someone speaking in my ear real
Yeah.
quick. Balancing. Thank you, Mr. Clauser. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dennis here in a moment. I just wanted to just kind of reiterate some of the talking points that we talked about at our previous meetings. We talked about our athletic facilities and the needs for those. I just kind of listed some of those out for the board again this evening. Limitations that we have in our current location, varsity baseball. Been there for many years at the town park, but obviously from an athletic trainer standpoint, supervision, all of those things that we talked about, and some upgrades that we want to do from a playing surface standpoint would be good for us to be able to get the JV and varsity baseball fields together. We lack a locker room and secure facility for outdoor sports such as track, soccer, softball, and baseball. This master plan would address that need and allow those student athletes to have a home base. Those of you who've experienced your children playing soccer know that the restrooms and concession facilities outlived its useful life at the soccer field. That's being generous. It's being generous, right, Mr. Triller? It's the press box is the same. It's time that we do something there. It served its purpose. I'm not, we can chuckle. It's done. It was great. It's just it's time to get that replaced as well. We also know we have an outdated and undersized pool. We are at a point where it's difficult, if not impossible, to find parts, to find some of the mechanical structures around the current pool. And so when you're looking at an athletic master plan, now's the time to address that and roll that into the plan so that we can right-size that and have a decades-long solution to it now with the right surfaces and modernization as part of that. We have the same with our strength and conditioning space, both outdated and undersized. We've seen a double in our student enrollment in our strength and conditioning classes, and we are limited in the space we are currently located, as it used to be the auto shop, so we're not able to move weight racks throughout that building or throughout that room, but it's also difficult from a supervision standpoint and safety standpoint when you have that many student athletes and students in that space. One of the very first things that that was brought to my attention as superintendent in 2019 when I came to Lebanon was our undersized track. We have 6 lanes, which is really limits our ability to host meets. We did put in a pole vault pit, and so we were able to add that field event when we put this turf field on the football field, and we made that part of that plan. But it still is not adequate. We have approximately 10%, 20%, 200.
We got an email today. Roughly 180
Yeah.
students participating.
So
in
approaching
girls and boys.
20% of the high school student body is in track and field. it's a strong program, and it's an undersized need for us as well. That, of course, flows into the need to make facility upgrades at the football stadium, as many of the bleachers there have outlived their useful lives. A significant portion of the bleachers has outlived their useful life. Some of the not original, but very old spaces. We also know that it's undersized both for the home side and for the visitor side, as well as the pitch of those roofs. We know that we're going to most likely we will add girls flag football in the future. When that happens, we don't know. It's a growing and emerging sport. It's likely going to be one of, if not the next, one of the next IHSAA sanctioned sports. So we need to be prepared for that as it's growing in popularity throughout the state of Indiana as well as the country. We added girls wrestling since my time here, but in the last few years, and we just lack adequate space for the boys wrestling program alone, let alone having adequate and comparable spaces for our women's wrestlers and our men's wrestling team. So this addresses that as well. And of course, our soccer folks never hesitate to remind me about the parking needs at the soccer area. And this master plan would not only serve soccer, but the other sports as well. So just wanted to kind of go through those bullet items for the board. Really glad to share with you some concepts this evening, what that master plan would look like. I would say that if the board is looking favorable upon this, this is when we take a look at that next date here in February for that first hearing to allow us to begin going down the road of financing. But through that process, if we're getting close to moving forward with some of these plans, we would reach out to the community, certainly folks who live around our current campuses, invite them in. You may recall some of our renovations and new construction. We built Central Elementary, for example, and invite the community in, have a Q&A, get the easels, get the pictures on the easels, interact with the community, answer their questions. So this would not be just a board meeting conversation here without engaging with the community. We'll make sure that they're aware of our plans as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, Dr. Millman. We spoke in December about sort of the beginning ideas of what this looks like, and until you can really see something on paper, it's difficult, obviously, to visualize. This is not final design by any means, but this is what gets you to the point where you can begin your project process. And so should this continue through to its conclusion, it may look completely different than this, but what we're looking at first is our outdoor sports, and this is north of the middle school, that narrow 60-acre swath, narrow in terms of, I guess, north-south here, but wide east-west. We would construct a main central entry point for every high school sport, I guess, or middle school for that matter, shy of baseball, at one ticketing location, and that is the yellow rectangle you see at 2. That building will be locker room space. Remind the board that currently our soccer, baseball, softball, they don't have locker rooms anywhere near the field that they compete. This would allow these students to leave their valuables and their sports-specific equipment in their locker and access the field with which they participate. So 2 would be locker rooms, spectator restrooms, ticketing, concessions in one efficient single location for soccer in the fall, and for track and field, baseball in the spring. Remind the board we have a concession stand for softball just to the south and west of the westernmost soccer field. 3 would be the parking for all of those sports. So there was a time when 10 is inundated with parking for soccer. That's currently our laydown area for the construction's middle school, but current plans call for that to be returned to natural grass, and that space is integral, as that is our opportunity for LMS to grow, hopefully beyond my career. With that being said, 7 is an 8-lane track. Some tracks are oriented east to west, some are oriented north to south. It depends on what space you have. I think many more are oriented north-south, so ours, I don't want to call it an anomaly, but it's just not as common. But there is potential space to do that, but it does fit nicely there. 4 becomes our varsity baseball field. Like our varsity softball field, it would be turfed. 5 is our JV field, and that would be natural grass. Between the 2 soccer fields with 8, we've got, I think, more work to do than what that says, and that includes a press box, likely facing both sides, so servicing both fields, and then spectator seating. I think right now a lot of spectator seating takes place on chairs that spectators bring. That would have bleachers there for that. I know there's some storage in there that's important to the team as well that obviously we would maintain. Inside of 7, going back to the track and field, would be a turfed surface. The flag football lines, dimensions, field outline is nothing like 11-person football. It's a much smaller field, a much narrower field, and so coupled with the fact that girls flag football is in the fall, like boys football, practice space for that event would be not possible with facilities that we currently have. Plus, that allows soccer to practice on turf, I'm told. I don't have any experience with the game of soccer personally, but I'm told that playing on turf, the ball reacts much differently than on grass, and so that gives them the opportunity, not that they couldn't come to the football field, but it gives them an opportunity right by their spot to be able to do that. No plans at this time to demo the current JV baseball field. There's not a reason to right now. It would just be demoing it to turn it to grass, I suppose, and no reason to do that to that asset, especially with the up-and-coming middle school program that has really taken off. Questions for, I would say, the north area of the master plan here?
Is the seating, is that on the track? Is that section?
Just below the 7.
Okay.
1,000-seat main grandstands. What I like about the designs I've seen from this particular architect is, if you've ever been to a track meet specifically to view a participant in the field events, a lot of times they're wherever they could fit it in.
Sure.
What we're able to do with this not being a football field is you can move long jump right in front of the main stretch, so people sitting in the grandstands can view long jump. Pole vault can be right there. Not that folks can't travel around, and obviously the shot and disc sector have to be outside. It's just a safety thing. So we aren't able to achieve, seated spectators on the main stretch for shot and disc, but there is 1,000-seat bleachers for track.
And what's our setback from the field and track to our neighbors to the north there?
So a linear footage, I can't say at the moment. I hesitate to say a number. Certainly can get that number.
Not the same distance as Mr. Clark's softball. Yeah.
But we feel good in terms of keeping light pollution and as much as possible from impacting some of that.
Light's the easiest to control with the way they can direct light
Obviously
now.
noise if there's a night baseball game.
Noise is more tough.
Noise is community.
That will be landscaped, however.
Yeah. Okay.
Plenty of landscaping on the north edge there to give that visual and sound break. But yes, light actually, we actually have to provide that to the city for them to even approve our plans that we can maintain light on our property.
Perfect.
Now again,
I'm going to ask one question, the traffic guy, or transportation guy. Ingress, egress, only one. Was there thought about continuing the existing drive around the middle school, tying it in just to have a secondary? That's a lot of parking to exit out of one drive.
still on, still in the realm of possibilities. In fact, that's the way they presented it originally. Eats into our middle school football practice field when we do that, or I guess soccer at that point. I know that is having one ingress egress there is a lot. I know it's not the need you're trying to address, but with the road leaving from the middle school to get over to John Bart, that helps to migrate that at least from Lebanon High School to here, much quicker than going around Fordyce and coming up John Bart. But we can certainly have a conversation with traffic flow and rates and things like that. We could theoretically have baseball and track and field on the same night. Again, I still think softball parking happens where it always has. So, really at that point, we're talking about baseball and track on the same night. Soccer obviously being a completely different season. So.
I know we can't determine what our return on investment in terms of students would be, but improving these facilities, what have other districts experienced an increase, a substantial increase in students coming to the district or not leaving?
Sure. We mentioned Dr. McKibben, a demographer, earlier in the meeting. He has a saying that people choose their school district with their elementary students. They stay for their high school programs. And I think the strength of those programs that students can engage in at the high school years is important. I don't know if you can put an exact number on that, but I think certainly when you look at our peers, we've tried to create facilities here that are comparable, but certainly are not over the top in their scope and design, and will grow with us over time. But aesthetics matter. I think ask the middle school students and the middle school staff right now how it feels to walk into the front doors of Lebanon Middle School compared to what it did 18 months ago. You get the same sense of pride and ownership and belonging and community when you have high quality extracurricular facilities for the kids. So I can't give you an exact number, but we have approximately a third of our student body right now, grades 6 through 12, that are in athletics. And so that's a significant number that we're serving through these facilities. So
We are bringing coaches in to along to kind of help guide because they know their sport and their needs. We are working with
they got to see this before the school board, actually. We showed this to them last week. So you're the second audience to see this, along with folks viewing. And, of course, they had questions immediately, because that's where their eyes are. And so, yes, they will be part of that conversation and
that's
planning.
more the
So
details. That's just
Sure.
about
It is.
integrating them in. That
it is.
If things
You're on the right track in upgrading and placing value on their programs. We have a tendency, we did this in the transportation center, for example, where, like, no, you get to have this really nice thing. You don't think so limited, because they're used to having to kind of make do a little bit, and so that's kind of refreshing to say, no, we're gonna upscale this a little bit and make it a nice facility. So
ultimately just do it right
the first time, yeah,
right?
sure.
Yes, and not have to.
I just checked my calendar. In fact, I've got a 9 a.m. with leadership in Big Four Swim Club tomorrow to talk about
I'm talking,
all of that.
Yeah, all these different.
Yeah. So this next slide takes us to our football field, and again, let me preface it. Some of this is showing us what could go, not necessarily what will. And so I say that because we could expand the parking lot at the current administration center to 75 parking spots. We could add a dedicated field at 9. 9 could be turf, or it could be natural grass. We're showing what can happen. What's planned for football is the ability now to eliminate the track, and that is the red dashed line. That's our current track. We would pull seating towards the field, creating a very intimate environment for football games that can get loud for the home team. Increasing seating to 3,500. On the home side, increasing it to 1,000, which almost doubles seating. We just changed conferences. Conferences are that schools are similar to our size, if not bigger, that travel well, and current seating for the games we played this year at times was inadequate. 2 is a press box that will have an elevator, not because we want an elevator or feel that an elevator is extravagant. It's because if your current code is if your press box is 500 square feet or greater, it must have an elevator. But that is a 2-story elevator to improve, for one, coaching booths, media, but the second story could be hospitality. There are some schools that have that and are renting that out for Friday evenings. The food service department is catering that for them so they can have their hot dogs or chicken fingers or whatever the case may be to have on that Friday evening. 7 is an outbuilding.
I will say that bleachers and press box is not a building. Just wanted to make sure that we're not constructing a brick building there. It is a
Modular.
modular type situation. I just want to make sure to do that, and then we're not building something that looks like Central Elementary at the.
In fact, it's possible that the current press box there could be used elsewhere because that is just a giant modular. It came in on a crane, one piece. 7 is an outbuilding. The fact of the matter is, current building code right now, we couldn't build our current facility. It's not code sufficient. Now, we're grandfathered, obviously. When code changes, you don't have to change. But we don't have sufficient number of restroom fixtures for our current seating arrangement. And so that is why we must construct an additional outbuilding, and that is what 7 is. The next slide, I'll show you what that looks like. But 6 would be a new visitor's entrance off Grant Street. So to make this work for seating and for restrooms, you also have to have enough parking spots. And to make this work for us and the capacity that this stadium would be built for, we do rely on the middle school. We relied on it out of necessity this year because of the parking that was taken away from construction. But that would be the plan in the future, is to have our visitors park in the middle school parking lot, enter at 6, and you really separate both fan bases. So ingress and egress is not mixed or blended. I'm not saying anything would be contentious if we were to blend, but it's just more of a dedicated ingress and egress at 2 spots for fans. That would be the first iteration of.
Mention to go back to the previous slide just for a moment. So I have to put my band director hat on. We've talked about some of the spaces that our current band works on. There's relatively landlocked parking lot over here. Sometimes it's hard to get vehicles off of that. Time for them to rehearse. If we were to construct something, say like a turf surface there, be a great place to put a tower, be a dedicated space they'd be able to use. At 9, we want to be, of course, blowing toward the stadium, not blowing toward the back doors of those homes. Be loud enough as it is. They'll hear them anyway, but just keeping that in mind, that it wouldn't necessarily just be an athletic, serving our athletic programs. I just wanted to make sure that we're being mindful of that as well. We fully expect and welcome when the student activity center is completed here in the summer and fall. We're going to begin to get requests from our community to use that space, and our youth programs to use that space, and we want them to use that space. Same could be true for a space like that. Your youth football programs could be playing on Saturday mornings in the shadows of the varsity stadium. And so there's some really neat opportunities to be good community partners with a space like that as well. So we'll see where the budget numbers are. We'll see where things are at when it comes down to that. But I just wanted to mention that this is a community asset as well as programs other than athletics.
Item 7 is an additional set of bathrooms in concession, not
That's
a
a-
replacement.
Correct. We have to keep. We have to keep both.
Keep the existing.
Yes.
Because it's in good shape.
Yeah. No, yeah, we're not demoing that.
And also on that configuration, currently, if we wanted to paint soccer lines on our current football field, it's barely regulation because of how tight the inside red line of the current track is there. Just notice that will all be turf now. So if you put the pipes out to string a soccer field, it would be closer to the largest regulation, which is closer to what we actually play on up in our normal spaces as well. So it gives us some flexibility that way as well, because that would be all turf at that point. We could do a plaza type of a situation down at number 5. Think about some tables and, you know, umbrellas or whatever it might be, just at game time to have people have a gathering space out there as well. So, all right, you can go on now.
This just zooms in on 7, what it could be. Again, you can make, and honestly should make that the visitors' locker room. So you can think of the visitors' bus as parking at the current admin center, and with the, especially the addition of the new locker room space, we still have a capability, and we could, and we're going to have to put the visitors in Lebanon High School this year, but by placing them up there, again, we just create more of that distance between fans and competitors. Just kind of zooms in specifically on the field to show kind of the size of what that would be. Just installed 4 new light poles. Those stay. In fact, the ramps on the north and south ends of the home side would kind of wrap around that pole. That's pretty common actually at a lot of fields for the ramps to get in. It would be you'd access the bleachers, you know, from those ramps in the front there. Could also do vomitoriums, just depends on kind of how the design shakes out. Moving into the building, you're looking at the existing auxiliary gym. What this does, it would demo the hardwood basketball floor where there's already a recess in the slab to accept the wood basketball floor, and a wrestling mat conveniently fits in that space. And that creates basically a wrestling room that's the size of the current aux gym. And when you look at really not just the high school teams, boys and girls, but the club that program has running, and the amount of young wrestlers, 4-year-olds that are coming in. A lot of times mom and dad want to stand and stay and watch, and in our current wrestling facility, I don't know where they stand. I don't know where that's possible for the parent of a 4-year-old who's going to stay and watch practice to be during that. What I like about this design is this is both their practice and competition gym. So when they host dual meets on Tuesday nights, you're not moving mats into Rosensteel. You can literally expand the bleachers. Those are the kind of hashed lines to the right of that screen, just on the outside of those heavy black lines that mark the office spaces, storage spaces. Those are the bleachers that move out, and that accepts fans for a wrestling meet. In fact, you could run the JV and varsity meet at the same time. You have 2 full-size mats on the interior of that room, and if you can kind of see the H in there, that's extra wrestling space. So it's those 2 mats that are on the top and bottom of the H. If you can kind of see that, that's a normal wrestling mat. You're adding, I don't know how many circles that is there. Another 6, 14, 15 circles of space for those teams. There's a boys coach's office and a girls coach's office planned with storage. Architects just plugged in something called athletics offices there. It's, again, just really what we choose. A lot of work going on in that corridor to the right in the white as far as our Hall of Fame. The entrances would be from the inside of the room. They're not going to obviously ruin our brand new Hall of Fame with doing that. So, questions on the wrestling room?
Is 185 seats there?
It's a good question, and certainly could expand beyond that. I think at that point, whether you shrink the storage and office spaces, or you have to lose some. I think what that gives is 3 or 4 rows of seating the whole length of the gym. For a dual meet, maybe. Again, we get to a point where we're hosting invitationals again. Now you're having competition take place in Rosensteel and the wrestling gym. You get some extra space there. Others?
Coach King's pretty excited about that.
I just talked to him in the parking lot on the way in, so yes, good for him. Doing a good thing, him and Coach Poplawski both,
Absolutely.
and the girls' side.
Yeah, we're not, we wouldn't be current plan would be to continue with the practice space upstairs. So now you have quality practice space regardless, but just let them figure out who's where, when.
Next up is the master plan for our natatorium. You're looking at the current natatorium space. It's just the pool has been turned. So the red line you're seeing is the current easternmost wall of the natatorium. So yes, this would be blowing out that wall and going into the bus lot, installing a brand new 8-lane as opposed to 6-lane pool that we have right now. Dedicated diving well. That's a movable bulkhead, depending on whether we're operating in meters or yards, and that provides 2 warm-up lanes in the diving well. Perhaps a little bit unstandard to have the diving boards oriented where they are. Should they move to the more traditional spot, which would be perpendicular to the bleachers, that bumps us too far out into the lot for it to serve as a parking lot still, and I think the next slide will explain, or in the coming slides it'll explain that better. You got 450 seats that are elevated off the pool deck, kind of in that darker brown there on the bottom. Relative variety of rooms, whether it's pool equipment, mechanical, storage, anything of the nature. Wet classroom in the lower right-hand corner. I'm told that means hospitality room. Official scoring station in the upper left. Concession stand, really a facility that you're hosting conference in, things like that. So that would be a 9,000 square foot addition. We mentioned weightlifting earlier. So with that, that's a current concrete pad right now. So where you see that new weight room proposed is a current concrete pad. I'm not sure if we're limited with where we can put this easternmost wall. If we can expand this more this way, but an 8,000 square foot weight room is certainly a good sized weight room. But depending on how that lays out with equipment, I suppose that wall could be moved over another 10 or 15 feet. We've got the room. A lot of utilities coming into this area. A huge benefit and advantage that we have now is we know within 6 inches where every single utility is that's entering that room. And so when we put this out to bid, there will be no more surprises when the excavator gets on site and we're digging into a clay tile that could not be located, or anything of the nature. All the fiber for the internet for the school corporation comes in right there as well. But nonetheless, it would all be planned for and designed in the construction documents as opposed to field discovered and change ordered. So that is a benefit of having that. You can also see kind of what these are in terms of the current bus lot and where they're overlaying. What that looks like in a redesigned manner, you can see we've got to be able to get 2 lanes of cars through here. So by turning the springboards, the diving boards, to their traditional location, you lose that ability.
So the weight room's added. It's new build north of this.
Yes, so
section
you have
here,
2
right?
roughly 9,000 square foot additions for the swimming pool and the weight room.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't just square that off?
Only
to
reason I
capture
can
the space?
only reason I can think of is because of these 6 parking spots right here, which conveniently make us a net 6 positive on the entire campus. So
Yes, we'd like to see that.
if we
I mean, it makes sense to
Yeah.
do it now, even if it's just storage, but it gives you expansion.
yep.
I
Yep.
don't know.
So yeah, I just, and again, all that would do is take us to net neutral on parking.
Sure.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure if there was like a massive
No.
utility that would be a problem or something
Just
right there.
just haven't got far enough along in the
Sure.
conversations and design. This becomes the staff lot. You might ask, where does the bus lot go? And that moves to the south end of the school, right across the street from the Little League. You're seeing 19 bus spaces right now. We currently have 2 rounds, one of 17, one of 15. 19 is a little tight. Here in Lebanon Community School Corporation, we have 14-foot wide bus parking spots. Normal is 12, so if we gave that instruction to shrink to 12, we could get up to 23, 24 buses there, and I feel confident that for the foreseeable future of the school corporation, that's sufficient. Parking right here as well. And again, that's how we keep net neutral on the entire site. And so I think it's important to share. This is a master plan. This is something that would take place over years. Certainly something that would be financed over years. Don't have a number yet, not ready for that yet, just have a project to show. But when it comes time to financing this, much in the similar way that we have recently, you're taking a year of cash at a time. And that's what makes the project affordable. Because you just simply, so much of this is dependent upon the prior phase. We're not able to work on the football field until the track moves. You're not able to expand the natatorium until you finish the bus lot, because you're going to be getting into your new bus lot. So it's a nose to tail approach rather than an overlapping approach. And so this is a years long, 3-4 years, if you were to do it all at once. And some of this, we can choose not to do. It is the true essence of a master plan, as opposed to, hey, this is what we're going to do right now. It's truly a la carte approach in some regards. Now, again, would it make sense to do the weight room and not the natatorium, or vice versa? Probably not. You get an economy because that's in one spot. A site work contractor would love to do all that work on one mobilization. So some of this is tied together. So I do want to be transparent about this. I don't think you could make the decision to do the natatorium and not the weight room, or vice versa, because you're losing the economy of scale at that point.
I thank you for adding in the natatorium, looking into that, and the holistic master planning. I think it's good to know where things are, where things could fit in for all.
And that's a challenge. I mean, space is tight at this. I mean, this is largely the last major change to the outline of Lebanon High School, as we know it.
The current, once not pictured, and we'll continue to work with architects too once we dial in. The current strength and conditioning room would be repurposed into some type of academic support for students. So this would also include some academic programming from a facility standpoint. We've talked about some STEM education potentially in that space. If we go down the road of some of the virtual or Success Academy type models, some of we talked about earlier in this meeting, perhaps some classroom space could be dedicated there. We'll work with the administration on what the best fit would be for that.
Other questions for?
Sorry, I kind of forgot my duties there for a second, didn't I? I guess I need to move us along. Yeah, no further questions. We'll go ahead and move along to the Tiger Cub pre-K update.
Thank you, Mr. Clauser. Just wanted to let the board know we've had, I think we're past a few, we can say several classrooms of pre-registration in just the first couple weeks or so that we've opened that. We have or will be engaging, if we haven't pulled the trigger on it quite yet. When you're driving along 65, we're going to make sure folks know that we have a Tiger Cubs pre-K. So that electronic billboard, we'll be purchasing some sign space there, not just for the pre-K, but for Lebanon schools as well, enrollment. So you might see that. I think we have 4 weeks. Is that right, Ms. Buis? I think it's 4 weeks worth of advertisement coming down the pike. So you might see that on your commutes. Engaging with other entities to get that advertised. Mr. Hunt is probably just finishing up with one of his virtual meetings right now. He's held several of those in person for parents and community that are interested as well. So I'm very pleased with the direction. Just also sharing with the board, we've received some questions about the tuition, it being a tuition-based program, and just remind the board that we knew that would be the case from the beginning. When we talked about this being a pre-K, we knew that it would be a tuition-based program. However, if you recall back in 2020 when we were starting the conversation around the referendum, and this is what the community talked about desiring, that there was still some state funding for early childhood education at that time. That's just recently no longer the case. So there hasn't been any state support for families for early childhood education, and there has not and continues to not be ADM support. So pre-K, early childhood, we do not receive funding on a per pupil enrollment like we do in K through 12. It is not funded with any state dollars. We want to be able to provide assistance for families who need it. Mr. Hunt is aggressively seeking out that support. The administration, everyone seated here tonight, is continuing to seek that out, whether it be municipal partners, whether it be business partners, whether it be not-for-profit and grant opportunities. I just wanted the board to know that if we are able to provide that type of support for the tuition support for families, we will do so when we're comfortable that that's the case. Some other questions we've had is about, where's the operating referendum on this? I thought this was the referendum was going to support pre-K. Also wanted to remind the board it is. Mr. Dennis mentioned this at the last meeting, and maybe it doesn't always land the first time, but the administration, the office staff, the school nurse, the SRO, the operations and maintenance of the building, the insurance, the utilities, everything about the facility is being funded with the operating referendum. Tuition is funding the instructional staff. So we are providing a pretty significant chunk of tuition reduction support. Because if you add all of those things I just listed onto the tuition, it would be significantly higher. And then when you factor in that in our 4-year-olds classrooms, there will be a licensed elementary teacher and a paraprofessional in each classroom, I'm comfortable in saying I'm not aware of any program like that in Boone County. I would think you'd be hard-pressed to find a program like that in the region where there's a licensed teacher in every 4-year-old's classroom. So I think the quality that we're providing the community is without peer, something the community can be proud of. But I just wanted to entertain any questions the board might have around that, but give you that update, and we're going to continue to try to advertise the opportunity for our community.
I think you made an important point there regarding the cost of this in terms of why it has to be tuition based, and I think something that most people haven't been aware of is there is no assistance from the state on this.
No.
So this is something that we've chosen to do as a community, and we're supporting it as a community through the referendum, but it is not something we're making money off of.
No.
This is not something where, we're all gonna
Right.
go out and get new cars tomorrow
Right.
because we were able to do this pre-K
No.
thing. This is just something that we're trying to do the best way possible.
Absolutely.
So I like that you mentioned that. That was mainly what my questions were going to be about. Do you know if you don't get a full, because I think you said, what's the total number that we can
The
support?
full capacity would be 154, Mrs. Simmons, is that right? My math is correct? So the 22 students per classroom
I
at,
was going to ask you what the ratio
7?
was.
yeah,
And-
11 to 1.
Thank you.
So in
11 to 1.
the world where we don't hit that number this first year, for whatever reason, is that something where we're going to focus on keeping this first generation of students in that program at the old central location, or are we still going to try and have a Perryworth option? Do we know how that might break down yet?
I think we'd have a Perryworth option because I think we're already at a full classroom at
At
Perryworth.
Perryworth.
So I think we're comfortably uncomfortable right now, I think, at Perryworth, because I think we're going to be getting to that point where there's another point in the financing of this and the cost of this. So if you want to keep it at 11 to 1, Mr. Hendricks, to answer your question, 2 adults, 22 students, right? What if you have 32 students at Perryworth, or 30, or any combination where it
Sure.
doesn't, right? We're paying that teacher and we're not getting the revenue, right? So it's kind of like that why cash balance question. And that will happen all the time because this will be a very fluid student enrollment age, and so that it will be changing all the time. So we're going to be up against that challenge all of the time, and also, we can't fund. It wouldn't be prudent to fund a pre-K with just full referendum dollars and say we're going to do this tuition free for everyone and levy all you can levy for as a board, because if it's unsuccessful in the future, that's not a good position for us to be in because it's not been a tuition-based program to begin with. So it kind of ties into all of our conversation up here so far that we have to balance that. We have to be always prepared for the fact that the tuition is not going to cover the staff that we have in place fully.
Any other questions?
I think it would be nice to eventually get to a point where we show what percentage is being picked up by the operating referendum
Sure.
versus tuition.
You can absolutely
So
do
what
that.
type of
Sure.
a reduction are they getting because of the operating referendum?
Yeah. Yeah. We can do that.
All right, I guess let's move on to legislative updates.
Well, boy, we've taken a lot of your time with a lot of heavy topics tonight. I just would say I just got an email this evening from one of our liaisons at the legislature. As you see your daily emails come through, board, you'll see ISBA legislative updates. I invite you to click on those. I cut and pasted one in your background notes today, but you get those. You get those weekly. To click on those. 1210, it sounds like, is going to kind of be the omnibus bill for all things tax. That would mean whether or not there would be any kind of iteration of a mandatory TIF pass-throughs to taxing units to the local income tax, what can be done, what can't be done with that. So I invite you to kind of monitor 1210. I was just told that this evening from that legislative liaison. The shiny things that get talked about, if you want, is cell phones, AED, defibrillator legislation, things of that nature. Those all have a way of sorting themselves out. Typically, those typically are things that folks are asking questions. There's a lot of unfunded liabilities that have been, kind of foisted on public schools. So a lot of the questions around those that legislation comes to the legislator saying, yes, but what is our exposure here? What is the exact rule that we must follow? And so there'll be a lot of back and forth debates around those items, but it's not the shiny things, it's the devils in the details things. And so it's going to be bills like 1210 for you all to keep your eye on and what's going to affect the bottom line here. But invite you to always ask questions, email us. As you know, I give you some hopefully surface level legislative updates weekly in your notes as well.
Any questions?
Anything burning that you'd want me to ask any of our liaisons, just please reach out to me.
Obviously, the AED stuff, since you did mention it, that's something, though, that we've always covered those ourselves in terms of paying for.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate
or
that
have
our
partners in
yeah,
the community.
our Board of Health has provided those.
Yeah.
We've been very, very grateful for them for that. I haven't checked with our professional organization to find out what the rub was with that bill to know. Perhaps Mr. Havlin knows. Maybe you did a little sleuthing and research. So yeah.
I did hear that that portion has been taken out of the bill.
Good.
They're amending that portion.
Yeah.
So AEDs should still remain as a necessity in the school.
Yeah. It always comes down to who's going to pay for it. And we've been fortunate that we've had a partner. But if I'm a very small district and
Sure.
remember, the cap on your operations fund is real for small districts. Those are large expenses. So
All right, if there's no other questions, then I'll give it back to Dr. Milliman for the consent agenda
Yes.
staff matters.
yeah, I would respectfully request approval of our consent agenda for staff matters, classified, ECA, and certified as presented to the board.
Can I get a motion to approve as presented?
Make a motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
I'm going to pause if you don't mind, just to share with the board and the public that with the passage of the consent agenda, the board approved the retirement of high school athletic director Bill Levine, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't at least take a moment to thank him. 18 years of service here to the district. He certainly inherited some challenges when he arrived here. put a lot of systems in place that were not there. He's been an advocate for kids, an advocate for programs, has engaged our students with the IHSAA leadership programs. He's a good dude. He's just a good guy, and has dedicated countless hours. ADs live at their schools, and you know, when they decide it's time to hang up their cleats, they certainly have earned that. And so I just wanted to take a moment and publicly thank him for his years of service, and he's graciously, you know, offered to be a sounding board and resource for whoever his successor is, and we certainly respect that as well. But I'm assuming I can pass on his well wishes from the board, but just wanted to thank him for his time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Levine, and enjoy your retirement. Hopefully he can come back and enjoy things as a spectator.
Get
now.
some
think he's
sleep
planning
on
on-
Friday nights and
Yeah,
Saturdays,
right,
right?
I think he's planning on working, but I don't think he's planning on working too many weekend
Weekends.
athletic
Good
events.
for him.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that takes us on to our consent agenda business matters.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Clauser. Talked a lot about finances earlier. The December specific information is there if there are any further questions or clarifications.
Any questions?
Perfect. Appreciate your action on the claims for December. Payrolls totaling $2,333,402.27. Claims $2,310,869.75 for a total of $4,644,272.02.
Questions regarding claims? Can I get a motion to approve as read?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that takes us to comments from the public. I don't believe I saw anybody signing up. All right. Action items, change orders, Mr. Dennis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Clauser. 5 this month, indicative of the December where folks take their vacations. So happy to answer any questions, but otherwise appreciate your action on those.
Questions? Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Lots of negatives I saw. This is good stuff.
Yep.
All right. So back to now cancellation of stale dated checks. Mr. Dennis?
Yes, every January we do this. By statute, governmental entities, any outstanding checks beyond 2 years of age have to be, essentially as the board approved the payment of those claims, and those claims were never paid because the person on the receiving end of the check did not cash them. It is this board's responsibility to place them back into the fund with which they were expensed from. So your action this evening will allow us to place these dollar amounts back into the funds that they originated from.
Any questions? Can I get a motion?
I'll motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's talk playground equipment, Mr. Dennis.
Sure. With the preschool, obviously coming to Perry Worth, we're talking about the playground equipment right there at the main entrance. That's the preschool equipment. Equipment has reached 30 years of age. Is that where we're at on that? 30 years of age. It's time to replace. I could certainly go into our ability to find parts to even repair it should it break. Nonetheless, sought many quotes on this. There is a special purchasing memo on this utilizing our ability to secure cooperative pricing. Essentially, option 1 is what I'm recommending to the board. It replaces what we have right now like for like, basically taking the 1980 model and replacing it with the 2026 model. So the equipment is that $28,000 number. Another $10,000 for the company to install it, as they are two separate companies. So appreciate the board's action on that, or happy to answer any
Will
questions.
serve the administrator as well.
Not that far of a slide to slide, but if they need to.
drive over there to use it, but perhaps.
Oh, this is Perry
Perry
Worth, not Central.
I'm also
Okay, yeah,
assuming
you're right.
that the regular K through 5 playground equipment is not. Is that available for our pre-K classes? Is that something where it's just not deemed safe?
Not
Is that-
approved. That playground is 5 years old minimum, so need to have a playground for our 4-year-olds.
Right. Just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Yep.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
And is
I
that
was
for,
thinking that little central one.
is that for option one?
Option.
Are you making a motion
I'll
to
make a
approve
motion.
option one?
Option one. Yeah.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, roof work.
Yes, annual summer roof work. Reminder to the board, this was budgeted to be $650,000. Had fantastic participation on bid day. 6 different roofing vendors submitted their bid for the work. The low responsible bidder was Horning Roofing and Sheet Metal, coming in at $507,770, so almost $150,000 under budget for that. So well done, Etika.
Any questions? All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve that roof work as recommended by the Horning, as recommended by Mr. Dennis.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Routing software?
Yeah, this is one of those items that goes back to our financial discussion earlier, and that assumption of 5% increase of annual expenses. Software is unfortunately outpacing that. For our parents that are used to utilizing their phones to know where the bus is going, that's the parent-facing portion of this, but you can imagine what Becky uses as far as routing is much more robust. Current product is called Versatrans, made by Tyler Technologies. Traversa is the next generation. Versatrans is locally hosted on our own servers, which is an expense in and of itself. Servers are not cheap. Many software companies are moving towards a software as a service model where they host our data on their servers, which means they have the capital investment in that infrastructure. Long story short, it's more expensive for us, the end user. Unfortunately, that's all they offer, though. 85% of the schools that use Tyler, which is the majority of the schools in Indiana, have already migrated to Traversa. We have held out as long as we can. They've notified us that they are to the point where they are no longer supporting. So think about if you're carrying an iPhone 8 in your pocket right now, eventually Apple says, listen, we can't do this anymore. Unfortunately, that's where we are. It's roughly a $30,000 onboarding and migration fee, and it will be a $30,000 annual and ongoing. By comparison, Versatrans is right around $20,000, so this is a 50% increase in transportation routing annual software. Again, it's
And is this migration, does this take place, I'm assuming,
18 months.
it's over 18 months is how long
So
it
they have
takes?
to geocode the entire district and migrate this over up to 18 months. So the timing that Becky kind of initiates this is important. So, probably a full rollout 2 school years from now.
Okay.
And the other one will be retained until that?
Of course,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly the biggest part of this, and that's why remaining with the current vendor is crucial, because the support along the way of keeping the old product working while the new one is onboarded. Hopefully 18 months is worst case scenario. 12 hopefully is more reasonable.
All right, if there's no other questions, I'll take a motion to approve the agreement with Tyler Technologies.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. LHS auditorium lift.
Yeah, this is a fun one here. The pit for our stage is motorized, and it can raise and lower. That motor is at the end of its life. Is it functional anymore, Mr. Triller, or is it's not functional at all? So there's 2. That pit can no longer move because of the specific infrastructure of this motor. There is not a company in the United States of America that manufactures a replacement. The company that does manufacture a replacement is located in Canada, and they, if we agree to pay them to have someone inspect our work, will ship us the 2 motors that we need. Our maintenance staff is more than qualified to install those motors, but they just won't sell us the motors. We have to agree to have them send one of their technicians from Canada to Lebanon to inspect our work and then sign off on the work that it's operating correctly. I challenge Mr. Triller to look really hard within the continental United States, because surely there was another way. In speaking with the architects who design stages all the time, they referred to Mr. Triller to a company in Kentucky, and the company in Kentucky said, yeah, you're not going to find this in America. In fact, that company that you're talking with is who we work with when we do this type of work. So shy of demoing our stage and putting a different lift system in, this is our option for regaining functionality of that lift.
How long has it been not working? Yeah, inoperable. Oh, okay. So it's not that okay.
Yeah, we've not been ignoring it, but
It's not been something that's ignored for years.
correct.
Yeah, good. No, good.
Did we try WD-40?
Jordan and I take a crack at it. if you guys
tried hammer and duct tape.
Duct tape, baling wire.
All right. So effectively, we don't have a choice. This is our option.
I've confirmed with Mr. Franson that he's comfortable with all aspects of this, up to and including a unit of local government in Boone County, Indiana, sending money to Canada, and he has assured me that all of this is legal. So
Okay.
In the long run, I mean, will we look at renovating that stage in that area? Because that doesn't seem like a long-term solution to have to keep working with.
So is this the first time they've been replaced, Mr. Triller? Yeah, so we just, if we recall, we just redid the floor in that, the wood floor. So we've placed a significant investment in there. I have no reason to believe that we won't be good for the next 20, 30 years as is. And at that point, maybe it is time to talk about an auditorium renovation. But it's just an interesting situation you find yourself in, because most of the time we do business with a company in Indianapolis, let alone Indiana or the United States. But it was just kind of a shocker to learn that no one does this in America.
Specialty.
It's the type of motor, I guess, the specifics of the drive shaft, technically, that man. Metric system.
Any other questions?
I did see it's U.S. dollars too.
That's-
I
yeah.
guess we were getting the savings built into that. So, yeah,
He consulted with the resident fine arts teacher in central office, me,
so. Yeah,
and said, we really need a movable pit. I said, yes.
yes.
So
All
it's
right.
now in front of you for your consideration.
I guess I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the agreement with Gala Systems.
Make a motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. I believe that brings us to our out-of-state trips.
Mr. Williams and Mr. Meyer have requested the approval to send Indiana, sorry, Lebanon number question to Kentucky for a competition on March 27th through the 29th.
Any questions? Take a motion to approve the trip.
I'll make that motion.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Upcoming board meeting, February 17th, 2026. Also that February, I think, 10th.
Then we'll talk to the board about what you may prefer, if that works hopefully for a quorum of you. It could be morning, could be evening.
Yep. So keep your eyes peeled for those, and if not, we'll see everybody on the 17th. All right. We're adjourned.